Emergency arms sales to Iran's Middle East adversaries, plus military maneuvering to build up the U.S. presence in the region. Good deterrence or an escalation of tensions with Tehran? Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar weighing in tonight on Twitter. We should be looking at de-escalation tactics above all else. War with Iran would be a grave and dangerous mistake. Joining us to discuss the two Kellys, the two Jessies. First, Jessie Kelly, senior contributor at The Federalist and retired Marine Corps Gunnery Sergeant Jessie Jane Duff. She says we can call her Gunny. Welcome to you both.
Good evening, Shannon.
Appreciate it.
Okay, Jessie Jane, I want to start with you and what the Congresswoman said there. I think this administration continues to say, and Iran continues to say, they don't want a war. Where do you think we're headed?
Well, Iran, of course, doesn't want a war, but meanwhile, its proxies are apparently going to try to attack Saudi interests. They have made a statement to the Jerusalem Post that was reported in the Jerusalem Post that essentially they're looking at having 300 targets in Saudi Arabia alone. They already are not claiming, these Houthi rebels are not claiming that they attacked the ports last week, but we do believe that they are behind it. These proxies have done nothing but death and destruction throughout the world, and at some point, the U.S. has to ensure that Iran is no longer capable of destroying not only our American lives, but our U.S. and allies' interests that are based overseas.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the really difficult things because this president, he campaigned quite a bit on getting us out of overseas incursions and not wanting to nation build or do anything else. So, Jessie, what does the president do with this? He says, listen, we're going to go there and defend our interests and those of our allies, but he's also made a lot of noise about getting us out of these things and getting everybody home.
Well, as long as that's his commitment, as long as that's the goal, Shannon, is to get everyone home, then it's fine. Look, I understand we're sending about 1,500 new personnel to secure our areas over there, our bases over there, and to help bolster our allies over there. We're sending missiles to Saudi Arabia and the UAE, and all that's fine as long as it's to prevent a war, because nobody wants a new war. We're going into Memorial Day weekend. We don't need to add more bodies to that list. We need to honor our troops. We need to honor those who passed, and we don't need to pile more on unless it's absolutely necessary. But look, it doesn't hurt to help out our friends a little bit, and of course the Democrats are going to be mad. Ilhan Omar doesn't support sending military aid to anybody except Hamas.
Well, listen, she's not the only one that's against this idea. I mean, Senator Rand Paul, he's a Republican, but you know how he feels about these kinds of things. He's cautioning the president against doing this, sending any more people over there. I want to read something from Senator Chris Coons. He's a Democrat. He's on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He says this: I'm concerned this action may only add to the escalatory cycle in the region. I urge the administration to explore diplomatic channels to de-escalate the security situation. Jessie Jane, what options are there? Because Iranian leaders are making a lot of noise about the fact that they're not going to be intimidated, they don't care about this stuff, and that it's the U.S. who's provoking them.
Okay, so first I want to address one thing. I appreciate that they want to de-escalate, but since in 1983, Marine barracks were bombed in Lebanon. And let me tell you, those were the highest rate of Marine death since Iwo Jima. Over 200 Marines were killed in the dead of night by the Iranian-backed Hezbollah. So de-escalation, when did we start doing that? Because they have attacked unmercifully, our interests. Even here in the Western Hemisphere, in South America, they are now involved. So what are we looking at? We're looking at a potential airstrikes. If they take any action against our troops or our allies, we're looking at a minimum of airstrikes. And I do believe that enough is enough. We have been handcuffed by the Iranians for probably over 40 years, and we have yet to see any repercussions against them other than these very severe sanctions.
Well, Jessie, what do you make of the news tonight? And our own Rich Hudson was reporting on this earlier about the fact that we're starting to hear that a number of these proxy and terror groups are having a hard time funding-wise, that Iran is telling them, you need to start looking for other sources of income. I mean, they even had a donation box out in one of our reports. I mean, that sounds like things are finally getting to them, that the sanctions get to them. But does that then make them more desperate, as if they have nothing to lose?
It does, Shannon, but it's also a good thing. It means our sanctions against Iran are absolutely working. They don't have any money. They're looking to ally with Russia. They're doing anything they can to get money. And yes, just because the enemy's more desperate doesn't mean you need to back off what you're doing. Iran is our enemy. They're definitely our enemy in the area. And Saudi Arabia, while obviously imperfect, extremely imperfect, is helping fight Iran in a proxy war in Yemen. And I understand people are uncomfortable with Saudi Arabia, but look, I mean, any married person with in-laws knows sometimes you have to hang out with people you don't like in order to keep the peace.
Oh, I love my in-laws. All right, Jessie and Gunny, thank you both for being with us.